Okay, we'll get started then. Just a few tips then in the session on how to successfully survive your NQT year. You'll have heard lots about it already during the first couple of weeks of the term, during the PGC year. So if any questions you have, just ask us as we're going through. I'm Alex, and this is Jennifer. A bit of information about us. Go on, Jennifer.
So we both completed our NQT year at the same time, so we've now just finished our NQT year. I work at BTH in Altrincham, which also used to be known as the British Torture House, but it's not anymore, so don't worry. I teach sociology. I'm about to teach psychology in January. I teach religion, and I'm head of sixth form pastoral care. I'm a year 13 form tutor as well.
Okay, so I completed my NQT year with Jennifer in 2014-15. So I teach at Stale Grammar School, not too far away from Jen. Teach politics, sociology, psychology, PSHE and EPQ. And I'm a year 8 form tutor and teach across year 13, 12, 7 and 9. We wanted to just give a bit of an overview of our NQT years before we got into some of the tips, just to explain really that everyone's got a different experience of the PGC year and their NQT year as well. Everyone goes into a different role. Everyone has different experiences, positive or negative, about what happens. So go on, Jan.
So, as you all probably know, because your first couple of weeks in, it's really daunting as you go in. I had the whole fear the night before I started school about being the new girl, and even wrote the Facebook status up, I hate being the new girl. I hate having to ask, can you tell me where the photocopier is? Can you tell me where the toilet is? And the only difference that I can say that your NQT year is that you don't feel in the way. I always say that my PGC year was the year of my life that I just felt in everybody's way. You had to ask to do absolutely everything. So as I said, I'm a blessed Thomas Halford, and when I went for my interview, it kind of just happened to see it and thought, I'll go for it. And then when I had my interview, I absolutely loved the school, and I just thought, I really, really want it, I hope I get it. So I got it, and it was like the best thing ever. Rang home crying. I'm sure you've all been the same when you got your job. But this whole year, I've just absolutely loved it. And I'm not just saying that because I think I have to tell you that you're going to enjoy it. I did really enjoy the year. I couldn't have asked for a better school. I've had really good support. And I've just had loads of fun last year. It's not going to say I didn't cry at all, because I probably cried the majority of the time as well. But it's just a year that I kind of look back and just think it was brilliant. I just loved it. And I loved learning all the new stuff. But why? You're probably wondering what's the point in telling us this, and it is like Alex said, everybody has different experiences, and I think as you go through you have to kind of take into account people's different experiences, because like Alex will tell you in a minute, his is totally different from me as well, so you kind of have to keep that in mind, that not everybody is going to feel the same as you do in your NQT. You will get people who hate it, you'll get people who kind of start to doubt whether they want to be a teacher, so it's about kind of that support for each other as well.
Yeah, so while Jennifer's good cop, she had a really good experience on the whole of her NQT year. I'm a bad cop. I had a pretty terrible first term especially, and so I'm coming from a different point of view. I was excited at the start, I was eager to get in. The head teacher made a joke. We had a new building on the sixth form area, and the first day of term I got in at 6:30 to try and get access to the classroom, but they didn't have the insurance sorted yet, so I had to be escorted off the campus. But excited to start with, full of energy, and then we got into the first term, and it's the longest and it's the hardest term you'll ever do. Quickly I got exhausted, worn down, and then at the end of the first term I was really thinking whether it was the job for me, whether I was in the right profession. Had to take a little bit of time to think, did I really want to do it? And yeah, I had a really terrible first term. Things didn't go to plan, but I did come on the other side, and I really enjoyed the rest of the NQT year. So we'll explain later. You might feel tired, exhausted, you might question during this first term, and Karen always used to say last year, it's the hardest one you'll ever do. But those feelings are normal, and you can still come on the other side and enjoy your job and have a good NQT year. Okay, first term stress or pressure. So you're already 3 or 4 weeks into it, and I picked out a really nice quote here. So the pressures teachers are under in the first year has been described as equivalent to someone coming out of medicine and becoming a brain surgeon straight away. What do you think? Do you agree with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've just been thrown in the deep end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And it's a lot different from your PGCE. So the stress from your PGCE year is about new experiences and new surroundings, whereas when you get onto your NQT year, it's about the pressure of being responsible for your classes. A few things on there, Jennifer, that we've highlighted as well.
Yeah, so like Alex is saying, you lose that support of your PGCE and you just kind of feel like I'm all alone. Who is there to help me? And then you have that whole daunting thing that these kids are mine. I don't have to say, well, they're not my problem anymore. It's not my problem if they don't get it. I'm still learning off somebody else. They are your responsibility. And we've just kind of looked at like different things that will pop up this year. So obviously you've all experienced your increase in your timetable. I spoke to a girl who's in your position on our induction day, and it was her first question. She asked me, how do you cope with the change in the timetable? I'm sure, I don't know if you all have the same experience, but I didn't notice it as much because you don't do as much planning and you don't have your assessments to worry about. You don't have to have your feedback that you do after every lesson to go and write up, and you don't have all that kind of different admin work, so it kind of keeps you busy as well. And I think in your PGCE year, those extra hours you kind of spent worrying about that extra paperwork that you needed to do, whereas now you don't worry about that. Standards and observations as well, so that's something else. So again, you have to still keep standards, okay, to pass your NQ2, that you all know. But our advice just is to still keep your file going, okay? So still, like you done last year, keep on top of it, because you do have a lot of different stresses and a lot of different things to think about now. So if you've sent that email about a student and that's going to be evidence for one of your standards, print it out while you've sent it. Do it as you go along. Photocopy your observations that you've got back. Put it in your folder. Just keep the folder at the back of your room somewhere that you just keep adding to it, so when it comes to handing it, you just hand it. I've even witnessed teachers this year going for their pay rises, printing everything else and out in the last minute and trying to organise, and then you've wasted a whole day doing it. So that's something else. Worrying students during exam periods, okay, so that's going to be a big thing. So I don't know, has anybody had the fear yet about exam time? Is anybody thinking about it? I know I've spoke to one of the girls on your course, and she's already worrying about what grades they're going to get at the end of the year, because it just seems to be all you talk about, especially if you're teaching A-level or GCSE. It just seems to be that shadow that's hanging over you. But it's inevitable. It's always going to come. Exam time's always going to come. And you've probably gathered it from your other courses. If you're being prepared for that and you're dripping through the exam process the whole way through, it should be one less stress for you as well.
And that links into what we said about the difference of the pressure from PGCE year to NQT year. So this year you're responsible for their grades. What Jennifer said is right. Don't worry about it. As long as you are doing the best for your students and you are working as hard as you can, then that sorts itself out.
Yeah, and the kids will hate you for it. I mean, one of my first lessons was, here's your mark scheme and this is what the exam paper looks like. And they were like, well, I've only just finished GCSE, but you kind of have to show them that A-level is, if you are teaching A-level, it's hitting the ground running. This is it, this is the start of your future. You need these A-levels for X, Y, Z, and then they feel prepared. My whole idea is that you never want a student going into the exam and thinking, I don't have a clue how to answer that question. Can never come back on you that you didn't teach them that. They will know the structure of every question. If you don't know it, then you make it your priority to find out of anybody that you can, what do I need to go into this answer? And it just builds your confidence as well. You kind of think, I know exactly what I'm doing. They can't fault me. They can't say, you taught me that wrong. I am 100% confident with what you teach. And then it just comes easy. That's like relieving stress. And that's what you want to think about. What can I do to relieve the pressure from myself? Because it is going to be a hard year. And then do you want to talk about marking?
Yeah, marking. During your NQT year, especially during the first term, you've not had much chance to plan marking. And that sounds silly in a way, but you're going to get loads of it, but you need to start thinking as soon as possible about how you can reduce the workload. So it's going to start to pile up. It's going to be causing you stress in terms of extra workload, but you'll get used to thinking of ways to try and minimising it. So we'll talk about it in a second, but spending that extra time, first of all, creating a simple mark scheme that your students could then use to peer assess their own work during the lessons would save you hours in the long run. Or every question or every set of questions you might use during a lesson, getting into a routine of students self-assessing, peer assessing, evidencing that, or making it visible with different colour pens and getting them to make a note of it, saves you time when you're actually going through their books, and you could just scan it and make a note that you've checked their peer assessment or their self-assessment. Key point bottom though, you are going to be exhausted at the end of this term, if you're not already. So we're already 4 weeks in, and I think for most people it's an 8-week half term before a 7-week half term before Christmas. It's tiring, but it's the longest one of the year, and you'll never be as unprepared as you are now, so it's going to be the hardest one that you ever do. That's something to keep in mind.
And you're already halfway through, so well done.
Jennifer mentioned standards and observations before, and you will have heard about this in your PGCE year. You're going to have to keep a folder like you did during your training. Doesn't need to be anywhere near as thick as it did during your PGCE year though. So they should be telling you at school, your induction tutors, that you'll need 1 or 2 pieces of evidence for each standard. Jen mentioned that you should keep continually adding pieces of evidence to your folder, otherwise you're going to have a big job one weekend later on in the year. Put down there something that could save you a bit of time. Get your phone out, photograph pieces of evidence. Take pictures of marking, take pictures of where you've hit the different standards, however you've done it, and then you can store it in a certain folder on your phone on the internet. Print it all off at a later date. But something there to keep in mind for time saving.
And then again, we'll put at the bottom there, make sure you observe other teachers. So this is just breaking down observation by your ITT leader. Some schools are different, okay, and some schools, they'll set with that too and that's it. Some schools might do more, okay, and I would kind of say, don't get your back up if they do maybe another one, okay. It could just be that the line manager or the ITT leader thinks, I didn't really see what I wanted to in that lesson, I'm going to do another one. Obviously, if they keep going and take the mick of it, you might say, right, okay, why is it? Always make sure that you question if it is going, and in a nice way. I'm just wondering, is there a reason we're doing it again? Don't start automatically thinking, they're doing it again because I'm a crap teacher, that's it, I'm going to get the sack, I'm done, because then you lose your morale. It could be that they want more evidence to show for you. They might want to say, I'm going to observe you and bring somebody else in with you because it was a really good lesson, they want to learn from it. And then going on from that, as well, observe other teachers. Okay, so you don't have a 100% timetable now. When you have frees, suss out in your school who are your outstanding teachers, who are the teachers that everybody talks about, they're great. Who do the teachers the kids talk about? That's probably the most important thing. You'll hear loads of kids saying, oh, I love her class. Why do they love it? Go in and see, even if it's 20 minutes. Just try and get as many different people. What I done as well is went to see loads of leadership. And that's because they're leadership for a reason, so you kind of start to look and go, well, what are they doing, what am I doing different? It might be that you see loads of similarities and it builds your confidence too to kind of think, oh, it's okay, I'm doing the right thing, I'm along the right lines.
I'm still observing other teachers in my RQT year now, so whenever I get a free period, I know, like Jennifer said, who the teachers to go and watch are, and I'll make the most of that. Especially from last year, it was very useful to go and watch other teachers teaching the same students or teaching the same classes to see how they reacted to them and what my expectations of those students should be in my lessons. And more generally, I was teaching probably 80% sixth form classes during my NQT year, whereas I'd hardly done any sixth form classes at all during my PGCE. So it was a big change, and it was important for me last year to go watch how sixth form classes are taught and how the students behave in those, again, just to firm up my own expectations.
Yeah. So, just some helpful tips, okay? Some of these tips you've probably already heard as well, but it's just to kind of reiterate them. The first one we kind of put is focus on building helpful relationships, okay, with the students. They are who you're going to spend most of your time with, okay? The whole thing is you do not want them getting their backs up with you day one because you'll have lost them, okay? And you've probably seen that as well in your PGCE year. As soon as a kid starts to hate you, you lose them. And it's not even about making them like you, okay? And that's one thing we've discussed, and you can't help it. You just want them to like you. Especially in your first year, you're like, just please like me, I'll do anything. I'll bring you sweets, I'll bring you chocolate. Because it makes you feel more comfortable. But just try and keep it in your head, you're not there for them to like you. You're there to teach them, okay? And that's what we'll talk about, helpful relationships. It is amazing if they do like you, okay? It's great. I mean, I have a boy in my class now who I know absolutely hates me. But I still work with him, I still give him the attention. One of the kids wrote the other day on the board, "We love Miss McGuire," and he went up and wrote "don't." So I thought, I'm going to lose a week's sleep worth of that now because he doesn't like me. But it's going to happen. There are going to be kids that don't like it. It's not the end of the world. If you're still giving them what they need, that's all that matters, okay? They don't mean, they're not going to ruin your life just because they hate you. One thing that you've probably heard is don't smile until Christmas. Okay, it's a bit extreme. And you don't want them all thinking you're a bit of a sour face and don't want to go into her lesson. She doesn't even smile. But we've said it's easier to soften up than it is to harden up. So still go in with your high expectations. Still go in a bit hard, saying this is what I want, this is what I expect, but you can still smile when you do that. And then if the class is good enough for you, you can always soften up a bit with them, okay? But you can never harden up. You go in soft, you're soft for the rest of the year. They've got that level. It's all about first impressions, okay? And it's the same with kids. They're lasting. They'll remember that first lesson that you've had with them.
Just on this one, this is where our different perspectives come in. So Jen was going to leave it at "don't smile till Christmas." It's too extreme, or it's a bit too radical, that one. I wanted to add that little bit in at the end, that it's easier to soften up than harden up. Last year, one of the biggest stresses for me was you'd spend ages lesson planning, evenings and weekends, and then you try and make your lessons as interesting as possible. The students didn't appreciate it. They didn't go to plan because they weren't following instructions, and then you've wasted that time. You could have done something where you didn't give them the opportunity sometimes to misbehave or to go off task. And this year I've changed completely. Some of my lessons in the sixth form and for my GCSE classes are slightly awkward. We're still getting to know each other, but I'm holding things back. I'm not getting to know them quite as well. I'm not engaging too much with them off task, just because I want them to appreciate later in the term, later in the year, when I put that effort in to make lessons interesting, to make them more engaging. And it's going to save me energy in the long run doing that.
It's like Alex said, everybody has different perspectives. Everybody's different teachers, so these are just kind of our tips and what we've kind of experienced so far. And you might think, actually, no, I want to go in and not smile at Christmas, and that is fine if that works for you and it works for your school. Okay, we're all in different schools. Okay, it could be that the school you're in, you need to go in hard face and not smile until Christmas. If that works for you, it's fine, but it's just something people, even on my PGC, it was something I kind of took as gospel. My friends were like, don't smile until Christmas. So it's like, how do you not smile until Christmas? I like smiling all the time. So it's just whatever suits you and your personality and your style of teaching. We then said about, again, that bounces off helpful routines, and just thinking about, Alex said about different, I think one of your main struggles was that it was girls, and that's one of my main struggles is girls, okay, engaging girls and having girls not hating you, because, and it's just things, I have one of the brightest kids in my class, and because I gave off to her, she just disengaged the rest of the lesson, because she didn't like that I told her to do what I'd asked her to do. Okay, and you are going to get, and it's about not getting hung up on that one student, because you do lose your whole lesson, and it's thinking about, right, it doesn't matter, because she is bright, she'll get caught up in the next time as well. Make friends with everybody else in the school. It's so easy just to stay in your own room and say, right, I just need to do planning, I need to do planning. Make yourself seen around the school. Make sure your principal sees you about the school. Make sure that other staff members see you. You're seen building relationships, and cling on to your fellow NQTs as well, because they know exactly how you're feeling. Sometimes you'll get teachers that have been teaching for so long and they do forget what it was like in the NQT year, and that's fine. It's easily done. It's easy to forget, but cling on to your NQTs, because then you can kind of think, let's have a bit of a moan together. And it's good to moan together, but not in a big group.
Just on that point about helpful routines, what I meant by that specifically when we were talking to Jennifer was about start of lesson routines and end of lesson routines, and how you can save yourself lots of, again, energy and time throughout the whole year. And I didn't do it at all last year, and I'm doing it this year because I know how valuable it will be. Spending those first few weeks during the term really getting the students drilled in what they need to be doing. So getting them lined up outside, having them come in silently, expecting without instructing them to get their books out and to be getting the information on the whiteboard down, the objective, the title. We're spending that time rewarding them for doing it well and picking them up when they're not doing it. Because last year, or if you are starting to worry about everything else that's on your to-do list and that goes by the wayside, it has an impact on the energy, the amount of time you have to spend re-instructing them during the lessons, and over a long period it will weigh you down. But Healthy routine. So I went and watched a lesson the other day. The teacher didn't say anything for 10 minutes into the lesson. By that time, she'd got them all lined up outside. They'd walked in, they'd got the books out, they'd got all the information down, they were ready to learn, and they were also getting on with the starter activity that was on the board for them. And I was amazed by it. She hadn't used any energy at all during that one lesson, but she'd put the hard work in the first few lessons of the term, in the first few weeks, to make sure the students knew what she expected of them. And that's definitely something I could be working on this year, and I wish I'd been doing it at the start of last year too.
And just off that using energy, I think you kind of feel in your first year, I need to be like giving it all, I need to be up at the top of the class bouncing about. My first ever observation was with my principal, and the comment that he made on it was that you gave too much. He was like, it was you up there working. So just think it's fine to have that silence for a bit. It's fine to let them not hear you talk for a bit, and as long as they're getting their work done. It's not all about you bouncing around the class 24/7 and losing it all in that hour, because you'll never make it through the rest of the day either. That one there, just about work out who you can and cannot confide in. We all probably know that schools are a bit cliquey. They can be cliquey. You'll get groups of people who sit in certain groups, and that's fine. But just think about who you're talking to. Okay, you never know who you're speaking to. And in schools, you do get a lot of family members as well. If you have problems, if you know that you need to talk to somebody, make sure that you're talking about the right person, okay? Don't go and an assistant's head and talk about how much you hate the school and you hate this, you hate that. Don't make a rod for your own back. Just think about it, because it's so easy when you're riled up and you're feeling a bit stressed and you're feeling frustrated. It's so easy to go to the first person you see and say, oh, I hate the place, and then you actually don't really hate it, but you've said that and you can't take it back. So just work out who you confide in. They always say in your NQT years, well, just stay quiet, just sit back and watch it all happen. See who's friends with who's. You still make friends with people, but just watch how the school works, okay? Because you are new to school, and there is a system in the school, and there is a way it's going to work, and it's in every school, it's going to happen. But just be careful of that. Just think about who you're talking to, and just think about what you're saying in school about school. Remember, that is where you are going to spend the next year of your life, okay? So just always keep that in your head.
It links to the point about getting to know and keeping in touch with the NQTs in your school, because they're the best people sometimes to confide in, because you're having the same experience, they're going through the same things as you, and often they're working in different departments, so you can let off steam about what's going on in your area with someone from a different area without
feeling like you're going to trip yourself up.
The last point we've got down there is about being kind to yourself, and it leads us into talk about work-life balance. And I've put in there that I still haven't achieved a work-life balance, or the kind of one that I want to in my RQT year. A few tips that I wish I'd known last year. Work out a plan and stick to it. So for example, this year from September, I've said I'm only going to work on this, that and the other evening during the week. I'm going to give myself Saturdays off, and I work during Sundays. Last year, just because everything started to roll during the first term and your to-do list gets longer and longer, I worked every evening, I worked Saturday and Sunday. And that just leads to burnout. It's not helpful, and it's unhealthy as well. So create a plan for yourself, stick to it. And if you ever think, well, I need to do this, or I could do with doing that, if it goes over your plan, then just think to yourself, in the long run, it's not going to be helpful.
And we've said there about prioritising, it kind of links in with that. The thing I always think about is anybody going to die tomorrow if I don't do this? And the answer is always going to be no. Alright, and it is that, it's just thinking about what is the point in me standing here or sitting at night, sitting up to 1 o'clock in the morning doing this work if I don't 100% need it for tomorrow. And if it is that you're planning the lesson for the next day, you learn from that and you think, this is my fault, I'm in this position, I wasn't prepared for it. But think about, so when it comes again to marking, thinking about, right, I've gave them a week to do it, this is the way I kind of work it, and everybody will be different. If you give them a week to do it, then you say, right, we'll have, say, about a week to get it back. That gives you time, especially in your NQT year. It seems really long, but you need that time. Now it's got shorter for me. Marking's not easy now, but I can give it back in a quicker turnaround. But give yourself enough time as well, okay? They're given the time to do it, so always think about it. And it kind of runs on to homework, which you all probably kind of know about, but my idea with homework is don't give it. If you're reading this homework thinking, I don't really know what the point is of giving this, don't give up. Because they will work it out. I have never used that homework in my life, and it's pointless. And thinking about marking and peer assessment here, I never give an essay for homework because you're just going to sit and mark your own notes again. It's completely pointless, especially if you're A-level, they're just going to regurgitate your notes. I never mark a homework like that because it's pointless, okay? And that's where I peer assess. And we do have a bit of a difference in terms of, Alex likes you like your peer assessment, I hate it, alright? And everybody's different, but I do honestly feel when I give it to my kids and say do some peer assessment, I end up doing it again anyway, because it's just like their mate sitting beside them, I'm going to give you 4 out of 4, yeah, it's brilliant, it's brilliant. And I done it the other day as a test in my class, and I said, right, give me it back. And I said, when you're marking, take off key concepts. One of the girls gave her 4 out of 4, brilliant. I could see her, really, really good. It was crap. She literally probably would have got 1 out of 4. So it's thinking about, if I am going to peer assess, what's it going to do for that other person's confidence, okay? That's doing nothing for her. It's telling her, you're brilliant, but she's actually not getting 4 out of 4. She's going to think I answered that question perfectly, but if she'd done that in the exam, it's not going to work out that way, okay? So it's thinking about what works for you. It obviously works for you, peer assessment, and that's completely fine. And I would never knock anybody for using it, but I just don't feel it works for me. So it's about learning what works for you. Keep regular contact with your friends. So we try to, and it's not always easy, but we do try to meet up a couple of every other month, once every other few months. And it is hard sometimes. You live further away. We have friends that live in Leeds and live in Liverpool. I live out near Rochdale. Alex lives in Didsbury, so we're all are just bits away. But it's always just trying to keep that link and keep that friendship.
And when you start to get tired, especially during this first term, it can be tempting to put off seeing friends, and especially a bit underneath, to make unhealthy choices, not to keep up with any exercise you've been doing. But they're two of the best ways that you can, during the first year, get your mind off school. When you're not in school, in order to keep fresh for when you are and to stay healthy, you need to be able to switch off. And keeping up with friends, doing lots of sporting activity, the best way to do it. And it's the natural response when you start to feel tired to put these things off, but just keep reminding yourself that actually in the long run it will benefit you.
But don't stick to a strict diet. You need chocolate and you need wine. Okay, so you will need them this year. So don't think, right, I'm going to get super skinny this year. I did think it for a while and then I thought, exactly that, I want chocolate and I want wine. Okay, let yourself enjoy those good things as well, and that is what happens. I think for a while for you in the first term I had to like force him to come and meet me. I was like, alright, okay, just come and meet me. No, I don't want to go out, just come and meet me. And you kind of, if you do get someone like that, you kind of just think to yourself, right, is there something wrong? Because you always would have been the first out. So it's thinking about whenever you've got your friends, don't go straight in going, I'm having a brilliant time, absolutely loving school, because they're never going to tell you anything then. They're not going to want to say, actually I'm not enjoying it, I don't like it. So keep that contact with your friends.
Just at the bottom there, I've put a message that I wish I could really go back to last September and tell myself. One of the things that really contributed to my work-life balance or to my to-do list was I thought that I could and that I should be trying to perfect every single resource, every single lesson that I taught, and it's just not practical, it's just not possible. So I put there, you need to remember, this is your first year. Every year after you will improve. Don't expect things will be perfect straight away. A lot of your workload might come from putting pressure on yourself to perfect your resources for every lesson. Unnecessary, unhelpful, and this is what I've been doing this year. It's okay sometimes to just make a mental note of how you're going to improve it next time. If you're thinking this year that lesson didn't go to plan, or you're looking at the week ahead and you think that worksheet or that PowerPoint, that could be improved and I could do that better, you can't do that for every lesson. Make a note, write it down, type it up that next time, next year, when you have a bit of free time in the summer term, you'll do it. But that will be something, that pressure that you put on yourself, that could be contributing to a to-do list that's not necessary. And other teachers don't do that on themselves. It's just something you might get used to from your PGCE year, trying to get a perfect lesson, trying to get a good observation, trying to get good feedback. You can't do it doing an 80% or doing a 90% timetable.
Yeah, and it's like Alex said, you just learn to cope with things differently. So this is still a learning year for you as well as your PGCE, and I've always said that my PGCE wasn't a real kind of expectation or a real idea of what I was like as a teacher, because you are guided by another teacher. This year is where you start to come into yourself, you start to think, what kind of teacher am I? Oh, this is what I'm like, this is what I like to do. And you will learn, so it's like Alex said, don't stress. I was speaking to Karen earlier, and I teach crime and deviance, and last year I spent a whole week and a half what's crime, what's deviance? And this year I'm like, no, half a lesson, there's a definition of crime, there's a definition of deviance, because they're never gonna get an actual exam question on it. So you're kind of thinking, I wasted all that time, but you learn, okay, and you do learn from it, and don't think, oh, it was hard, that was awful for them kids, because it wasn't awful for them, it was just a bit prolonged, and this is what you then learn next year. So don't stress now, thinking, I'm going to spend it too long. Go with the flow now, okay, and you will then learn from it next year. So don't start panicking, thinking, I need to know right now. You don't need to know right now, this is where you're learning about yourself.
Okay. The one thing that really filled my to-do list last year was lesson planning. I went through the start. I'm teaching about 6 different subjects, 6 different exam specifications, and I'm the only teacher of a couple of those. And there was no resources to start with. And so evenings, weekends, it was just lesson planning. What's an interesting activity to do here? How could I fill 20 minutes here meaningfully that would contribute to them doing well at the end of the year? It took me too long at the start of the year. And I got to that stage in the summer term, I had a bit of time, and I thought, well, I want to improve most things for my RQT year. I know what I could do better next time. And I needed a way of trying to make that happen. So I'm going to plug something. I'm going to act a bit like a businessman or a salesperson here, but I've created on TESS a pick and mix lesson planning tool.
This is just Alex in a page.
Basically, whenever I plan a lesson now, I have this open. And it's a PowerPoint, it's got about 100 slides on it. Instruction slides on the front, and it's then split into section of blue slides, which are all starter activities, a section of orange slides, which are all main lesson activities, and a set of red ones, which are plenaries. There's loads of lesson activity generators already out there, but what I did during my NQT year and my PGCE year was collect lots of those, pick out the ones which I thought were best and more suited to my subjects, but particularly those ones which don't take a lot of preparation time, ones that you could put a slide onto a PowerPoint, you could tailor the instructions to do with your topic, and you wouldn't need any resources, you wouldn't need to spend ages making anything. So I have this open every time I'm planning a lesson, and it's so much quicker now, and it's a lot more enjoyable as well. A lot of these are engaging in cooperative learning tasks, which the students will enjoy. So a few examples I've got there. That would be a starter activity. So if this is the answer, what's the question? All I would do is open this up, copy it, paste it into my lesson. And I've got the starter activity there. All I need to do is write some words onto the board at the start of the lesson, and that's my starter activity sorted. Describe and draw. I really love doing this with my students, so it gets them doing something a bit different. Last lesson we were doing about the structure of the eye, and they needed to know the key features of the eye. So one person faced the board with a picture of that eye, the other one faced the wall. They have to describe it to each other. Huge range of them. A main lesson activity there, mixed pair share. Lots of them are the Kagan activities and the cooperative learning activities. Expert pairs as well, so there's some dodgy pictures on each one of them. And then we've got some things, so true or false quizzes, and things like word snakes. Again, they take so little time once you've got that PowerPoint open to create a lesson.
So get yourselves on TESS. Get them all as diagrams. It is brilliant though, it's good, and it keeps that time for you, doesn't it? It saves that time that you're worrying about, because I think sometimes you do spend a lot of time thinking about what is my date now, what is my starter, what is my plenary, especially when you're being observed, so that would be a really good tool. Just wrapping up, and a couple of other bits and pieces. So handle a form. So in your PGC, and some of you now might have a form, and it does become stressful, okay, but just always think about, all schools are different, and for some schools you don't have activities to do in form, and it's for some people it's just an extra thing to worry about. So I'll send some things I have to Karen and she can put them up. But I do things like quizzes with them. What's the other one called? I can't remember the name. Where you get the thing on the board and then they have to guess what it is. What are they called? Is it anagrams? No. I'll send them anyway. I can't remember them now.
There's a really good website as well called Form Time Ideas,
yeah,
where you could just put that into your computer. It could come up on the board. Brain teasers, anagrams on there.
Yeah, brain teasers,
jokes and everything. Doesn't take any preparation time, but it can make those 10 minutes in the morning quite fun.
Yeah, And it depends on then your form. I'm a year 13 form tutor, so we would watch like the BBC News as well, and they have a quiz every Friday, and we do it in competition with each other. And one thing that I've found, especially being a sociology teacher, is that there's so many students don't read the news, don't watch the news, so they actually don't know what's going on around them, so it's like 10 minutes. Is anybody a 6th year or year 12 or 13 form tutor in here? What year have you got 12? There was one, and it was lights, and they were in a neon colour, and the word that they had to come up with was neon lights. Oh no, it was lights with neon on top of it, so it was neon lights.
Oh right, yeah.
Do you know, what do you call them?
What's it called that does the Roy Walker did it? Catchphrase!
They're like catchphrase, yeah, something like that. I do that with my form. This year I'm a year 13 form tutor, and I do find this year very stressful because we're doing UCAS and we're doing personal statements. So if you find out that you might be a year 13 form tutor next year, my advice is that you start thinking now about UCAS stuff. It might seem a bit early, but it's one thing that I kind of wish I hadn't known. You do end up just writing personal statements for students as well, because they just are so lazy as well, they don't want to take it in. But handling a form on your own is completely different. You will have loads of teachers emailing you about students, about things that they've done wrong, about problems that they're causing, and as a form tutor it is your responsibility to follow that up. So think about ways that you can make that easier. So is it building a spreadsheet that I have all my students' names on it? How many times have I been contacted by different teachers about them? Now I need to ring home. Have some kind of procedure that works in school. So think about the different reasons. You'll all have your students in your form that are maybe students that are already flagged up. Keep an eye on them, how you're going to work it. It's all about making it easier for yourself and how you make it easier. I love being a form tutor too, because it means you get to see different students that you don't teach, and you start to build those relationships up. Second one then, just know who to go to if you're having problems in school. So we all know it's your line manager, but who do you go to if you're having problems with your line manager? You need to know all of this stuff, because the last thing you want to do is be running around school saying, I have problems, and then everybody knows you have a problem. You want to keep it contained. So who do I go to if I do have a problem? If you have a problem with a student, you go straight to your line manager, but who do you go on then up above that? And it is something that you don't tend to think about. Well, I don't think I'll have a problem with my line manager, but it is something that might happen. So always think ahead and always be prepared. Our last one then is parents' evening. So you've all probably experienced the parents' evening, maybe if you're sitting in on one. But looking back to my PGCE year, I didn't really do anything. I think I probably sat and thought about what I was doing at the weekend, really, because I didn't know the students. And to be fair, the teacher didn't know them either. She was like, who have I got coming next? Right? Who's the book next? Put them in order. So that wasn't my first ever parents' evening. I was totally crapping myself. I was like, oh my God, what if somebody's really rude to me? And a parent was really rude to me, and you just have to deal with it on the spot. I had a parent swing the door open while I was in the middle of an interview or of a parents' evening with a parent and their student, and say, is there any chance that you're going to see me anytime soon? I was thinking about, do I want to get out of a chair and say, actually I'm in the middle of something? It's so easy to fly off the handle at anybody. It's thinking about how you're going to deal with that situation. So it's still biting your tongue and still being nice to that parent, and just explaining maybe that you are busy and you'll speak to them when you don't have a parent in front of you. But it's actually really fun as well, because you get to see students' parents, and you get to see that's where you get your personality from. You're just like your mum, you're just like your dad, and you start to build that relationship up with them, and then they have the confidence in you, so if they need you, they can ring you as well.
And if you're just worried about parents' evening, the key thing is to be prepared. So if you forget who the students are, then have a class list with photos on it. Have a mark sheet as well, so you can go when the parents come, go across your class list. You can say what marks they've been getting throughout the year, how they've been progressing. It gives you something important to talk about. Just relax as well. It's quite enjoyable, and it's worthwhile. It changes your relationship with your students in the lessons afterwards once you've met the parents and you know a bit more about their home life.
I'm just kind of thinking about your mark sheet. If you have a child who is being a problem, flag it up before parents' evening. The last thing a parent wants to come and sit down and maybe expect that they're getting something good about their child is to then have a smack in their face that their child does absolutely nothing. We have parents' evening coming up in 2 weeks. So I've sent out my email saying that these are the concerns, and then you kind of say, I look forward to seeing you at parents' evening, and we can discuss them together. Okay, it's like all of us, we don't want to go into something unprepared or not ready for something, so you want them to be prepared to what they're coming into. And again, with your mark sheet, have it many times, so don't sit down and say, Billy's missed 1,000,001 homeworks, because they might say, can you tell me when? I don't know, I just know that he has. You need your facts. So he missed it on the 1st of September, he missed it on this date, this date, this date. It is hard to keep track, but it will pay off for you in the end. You can't then, you always need that evidence to back you up. So if you're going to your head of sixth form, you're going to your line manager, they're going to ask for the evidence. If you have no evidence, you've no case, you can't say anything about that child because you haven't bothered to keep the evidence that they don't do their homework or that they're not prepared. So use SIMS, whatever way you log those kind of things, and make sure you keep logging them and always keep it in your head.
Yeah, and a nice thing to do in parents' evening is to have a copy of the child's latest or last assessment, where you've put on their grade, what they've done well, but also an answer to a parent's really important question: how could they improve next time? If you've got that there in front of you, it saves you the embarrassing situation where you might not be able to tell them. So again, being prepared and having that information with you on the evening. Are there any questions?
I think we're probably taught that well, if there is no questions.
You survived it though, didn't you?
Yeah, and you do survive. This is the thing. We do have a couple of people of our year that have dropped out. I've kind of said that I think it's a lot to do with your school that you're in. And if you genuinely don't enjoy your school this year, my advice would be at least give it another year and try to go to a different school. And then if you still don't like it, maybe it's not, and that's fine. But I would always say give it an extra year to see. Go to a completely different school, and then you might actually think, I really enjoy it here. I'm glad I didn't give it up, because you might just throw it away just because you didn't enjoy that 1 year, and it might have just been because you weren't suited to the school or the school wasn't suited to you. But you will survive, and you will survive this term as well, but with plenty of chocolate.
And I think the thing to remember is manage your expectations. You can't be perfect this year. As long as you work hard for your students, then that's all you can do, and that's the best thing you can do. You passed your PGC year, you've got a job in a school, they trust you to be teaching their students, then everything will be fine if you work hard and you've done your best.
And don't be afraid to ask for support, but then don't ask for too much. So don't keep going to people for silly things. Use your other kind of friends within school, and what would I do with that? Because you don't want to be flagged up as that teacher that's always coming about stupid things. But at the same time, use your support. So the likes of marking, can I sit with my line manager? Can you spend an hour with me? Go through marking. My worst thing was I said to my line manager, yeah, be fine, I'll take them home. Thought it was great and cried the whole evening because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And then the next day she was like, what did you do that for? Because I thought it was really good. You're not trying to impress them at this point. They're there to support you, and then next year, that's when you try to impress. And again, one point just off my thing as well, don't be afraid to go for promotions, okay? If you're feeling that you're settled in, I got a promotion 6 months in, so don't be afraid to go for stuff. As well, if you're kind of thinking, I want to be seen in the pastoral scene, and there's something comes up, obviously not like a deputy head or anything, but something comes up that you think, I could do that, go for it. If you don't get it, that's fine, but your hat's being thrown in, and you're then marked up as, okay, they're interested in this, and I know they're there if they come back again to keep applying. So don't be afraid to apply, because I was really afraid to apply and thought that I was going to think, what does she think she is? She's an NQT. But go for it, you can't lose anything anyway, so. And enjoy the rest of this term, and thanks for having us.
What do you think? Made you feel less terrified?
You teach